All right, so welcome everyone. This session is going to be about Couchbase Mobile. So my name is James. I'm a technical writer at Couchbase. So basically what that means is I work on the documentation, and sometimes it involves like giving talks like this, which is pretty cool. So let's have a look at what we're going to talk today about. We'll give a quick overview of how some of the requirements in today's world of like building mobile apps so plays a role in the overall architecture. Then the role that Couchbase Mobile can have and can solve, and then we'll have a look at some use cases and some stories. So I've got a demo, and what I'm going to do is give a bit of overview of the features, and then like demo, and then carry on like that, feature, demo, feature, demo. All right, so in terms of what you want to, like the top criteria is when you're building an app, obviously support is important. If the libraries you want to use are not supported on the platform you want to build for, that's a problem, so that's one. Security, that's on the device, on the wire between the server and the device, maybe on the server as well. Data modeling, that's a big part as well. Like imagine if you have an app on the App Store, you ship an upgrade to the app. Well, the previous upgrade is still installed on some of your users' phones, right? So you have user A with device A, and he's got an older version of your app. So if you change your data model, you need to account for users who have not upgraded yet, right? So you've got the two to deal with, two to deal for. Conflict resolution, that's when your device is offline and it's changing something while another user is also offline and they both change it, and then how do you account for that when they come both back online? We won't really talk about scalability. Sync, we'll talk about that, and then topology and peer-to-peer as well. So Couchbase, I'll say it quickly, but I'll come back to it later. Couchbase Mobile is divided into sort of two sides, the client side and the server side. The client side is called Couchbase Lite. It runs on the device, right? It's an embedded database. And then the server side is called Sync Gateway, which is like a web tier. It's a synchronization server. And there's also Couchbase Server behind Sync Gateway, which is the storage engine, right? So usually Couchbase Mobile is Couchbase Lite, Sync Gateway, Couchbase Server, but obviously you can use Couchbase Server without Couchbase Mobile, as you've learned so far today. So there's three implementations on the client side, one for iOS, written in Objective-C, one for Android, written in Java, and one for Windows, written in C#. And you can basically run it on a whole host of platforms, not only those platforms. So for example, the Android SDK, the Java one, can also run on Linux because it's Java at the end of the day. So there's a few differences, but most of it just runs on Linux as well. You can run it on Raspberry Pi, on embedded devices. So security depends where you're talking about security. So the device is here having the UI, the application logic, and the database. So in this case, you want encryption. If the app, for some reason, if the phone gets stolen, you want that if somebody's logged out and the data is still on the device, nobody should be able to access that data, even if they plug the phone to the computer and somehow do a backup of the full phone. So there is encryption support with Couchbase Lite. And then on the wire, we use SSL to secure the connection. And on the back end, there's a few security features. So authentication, if user A authenticates, you don't want user B to basically access the data of user A unless you've allowed that to happen. So we'll talk about that a bit later. And then encryption on the server side, so that's in Couchbase Server. A quick note about data modeling. So I think what I'll do here is just switch to so that's the example we're going to go through later, the demos. But let's just have a look at. Oh, that was that was Android Google Now that somehow did a search while I was talking. So, oh, okay. So the relationships. So it's a list application. Let's have a look quickly. There it is. So it's a basic to-do list, and you can add lists and add tasks in that list. And you can also like log in as a particular user. Sorry, I'm just going to stop that. So the documents involved in the app. So there's a task list. It's basically a list document. It's got an owner and it's got a name property. And then it's got a one-to-many relationship with a task. Is that big enough, by the way? Maybe not. Let me put this there. Maybe that's better. Is that better? Okay. So now the list, the task here is referencing the ID of the list it belongs to. Okay, so you could do it differently here. You could say, "Oh, I'm going to take this and put it in there." So that's embedding the document. With JSON, you can embed stuff. Obviously, the key is a dictionary. So you could just say, "Yeah, I'm going to take this dictionary and I'm going to put it there." But the downside with that is, if somebody wants to update, for example, the name of this list, they're going to have to go through all of the tasks and update what's in the task, right? And that's not great. Instead, you want to separate them out. So usually, that's what happens. Sorry. Yeah, you can also have a one-to-one relationship. So here it's a user, and there's a moderator document which grants that user the role of a moderator. We'll get back to that later, but yeah, it's the same. It's just that instead of having many, you've got one. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. Okay, conflict resolution, that happens at a high level. So like as I've explained, when two devices update different data at the same time. And there's different ways to solve it and to resolve them. But basically, it's all down to the application. So you choose how you want to resolve your conflicts. Couchbase Mobile doesn't take a view on how it should be done, whether it's like the last write wins or I don't know, a certain user wins over another user. So that's why you have different ways you can do it. Automatic means that Couchbase will pick one, which is called the current revision, and your conflicts will be marked as conflicting revisions. So it's sort of hidden, but they'll still be there. So automatic means I'm just going to pick whatever Couchbase Lite or Syn Gateway picked, right? So it's the kind of the default. On device, oh, sorry, that was a mistake. Yeah, where can you resolve them? So you can resolve them on the device in the in the language of your choice, Swift, Java, whatever. And on the cloud, you can write a script that will like subscribe to conflicts on Syn Gateway and then resolve them. Usually, it's better to resolve conflicts on the device. That way, you don't have to maintain another server on the back end, like sitting next to your Syn Gateway, but you can do whatever you like. And the other thing you can do is, if you have two conflicting revisions, you can show them to the user, say, this is the first one, this is the second one, like, which one should I pick? And then when the user selects one, your code will basically, like, delete the conflicts and then pick promote the one the user picked as the winner. And the last one is the n-way merged conflict resolution. So in that case, you've got one update, which is the email, and then the other is updating the name. And you could have the result as being the name and the email. So in that case, you've got to loop through all the conflicting revisions, and you've got to do the diff between this, and you've got to basically, take the diff and then take both of the updates into the last revision. So here in the app, I've got a flag called conflict resolution, and if it's set to true, it's going to listen for conflicts and then resolve them. So let's have a look here at what it does. So that's the code to detect conflicts, for example. So you create an all docs query. In other words, it's a query that indexes all the documents in the database. And the option is all docs mode equal only conflict. So here you only want conflicts. And then the resolution of that is going to call a function when it happens called resolve conflicts. And depending on the type of document, so it could be a task list, it could be a user in a task list, or it could be a task. Depending on what conflict it is, or the type of document that the conflict is happening on, it will do different things. So if it's a task list, that's the automatic method. So it's, let's have a look at what it does. So I just want to start from so here, for example, I'm deleting the database because I just want to start from like an empty database to show all the different components, like from 0 to the end of the presentation. Okay, so here I have one list, and I've enabled the conflict resolution. So, damn, I shouldn't have enabled that, sorry. I'm just getting confused. I want to show you what happens first and then resolve them. So to create a conflict on one device, you can use a method called save allowing conflicts. And that's useful because you want to test your resolution without having two devices, put them offline. That's too much work. So here, when I do this, it creates update 1, and then when I delete it, see, there's still update 2. Basically, what it did is it created 2 revisions, and there's a conflict, and it's not getting resolved. So when you delete this, you see that's getting deleted, and there's still that one. So that one becomes the winner. And your users will be maybe surprised when they see this. So that's kind of why you want to resolve your conflicts. The other example is, so now when I delete update 2, see it's deleted. Now if I do the same for a list, I see here there's a there's a list here with a check mark, and then when I delete that, there's also update 1, okay? And then I delete that. Now let's add this, which is just resolving the conflicts. Okay, when I delete this, it's update 1, and then there's nothing. Right, so the conflicting revision was deleted, and there's just 1, and it's update 1, and it was cleaned up. So that's automatic conflict resolution. Now, if I do the same for the task, you see that there's update 1 and the check mark. Earlier on, it was test conflicts task and then check mark, and then when you deleted that, it was update 1. But now it's update 1 and the check mark. So it took the diff of both and then put it in the last revision. And that's also something that users want to see happen in your app, right? So that's why you can choose how you want to resolve conflict depending on the type of document. Okay, that was a long discussion about conflicts. Okay, sync optimization. So obviously the biggest feature of Couchbase Mobile is the fact that you can replicate from the server to the client, or from the client to the server under the hood. So as the application developer, you're querying from the database, and then there's this replication process happening on the background thread that takes what's in there and puts it up there, and then takes what's up there and puts it in there. So it makes it easier to develop and obviously much quicker as well. So there's different ways you can architect your overall, obviously your overall backend. The star is the most common. It's where you have the server on the cloud and then all the devices. How are we doing on time? Sorry, is it 1:30? Not half. Oh, okay, 20 minutes. The second one is the tree topology, where you have multiple servers potentially. And the last one is where everyone sort of has the same weight, and that's complicated, and I don't know anything about that, so I won't talk about it. That's Sync Gateway here in the middle, and here you have your clients. That's the first thing we're going to look in the demo. And the next one, so you can say which devices syncs when, that kind of stuff. Then on the server side, you can also do it between servers, so you have replications on the server as well. And then what you can do is, you can run Sync Gateway on probably a Raspberry Pi. Fujo in the room has done some amazing experiments with Sync Gateway, running it on loads of different small machines connected to a load balancer and stuff. So maybe we can talk about this at the end in the Q&A. And then the last one is where you just have the peer-to-peer. Right, it's there. Yeah. So you just have the peer-to-peer. So in that case, there's no server. So let's go back to the demo and see how that works. So that's the configuration file for Sync Gateway. So the sort of stuff you declare in there is like what port you want to have Sync Gateway listen on. The server, Walrus, is like an in-memory server. But in production, you would use Couchbase server. So in here, you would put something like HTTP localhost and the name of your and then the location of the server. Here, we're just going to use Walrus, and potentially users. You can create users dynamically as well, but here we're just hard coding them in the config file. And then this is your sync function, and this is where it gets interesting. This function is responsible potentially for all the business logic in your application. So it takes a document and an old document. This is the revision. This is the previous revision, the parent revision. So for example, the first thing we're saying here is if, I'll skip over those, but if it's a document that comes up, you want to make sure there's a type property, right? Doc type. And if there isn't one, you want to throw an error and say there's no type in your model, like this is not valid, reject it. And then it goes on to, okay, you have a type, now we're going to look at what type it is. So here it's moderator. So it does a series of operations to check if it's valid. Let's skip and go straight to the task list. Here what it does is it says that require user, we want basically the owner property on that list to be the user. It basically means only the owner of that list is allowed to create the list. It's kind of obvious, but you wouldn't want somebody to create a list for another user, so you have to make that check. And if that's not the case, if a user is trying to create a list for another user, then that user is only allowed to do it if he's got the role of moderator. Okay. So let's just pretend we do this here. So here we're saying if you have the role of moderator, you can create the list. If you're not a moderator, then it will reject the document and will throw an error called like no, no, no. So that's write permission. And you need that in your app, obviously, because you want to allow only certain operations to succeed in certain scenarios. But let's try something else. Let's try to synchronize between the two devices directly. So here I'm changing the URL from the database, oh, damn it, from the Sync Gateway database to the Couchbase Lite running on Android database. So because it's user 2, right? And the port it's running on is 5984. On the Android side, I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to only run it for port 5983, which is the port the iOS one is running on. And the database for user 1 is called, for the iOS one on the left is user 1. Okay, so let's try this. Hopefully it works. So here I'm just going to check that. Yeah, that's working fine. And then that one's working as well. Doesn't seem to work. Okay. I tried it right before the presentation and it was working for both, and I've put myself into a state now which is like, oh, it worked. Yes. Okay, we got half of it. But that was, oh, wait, Sync Gateway is still running. I don't know if it went through Sync Gateway. Okay, so I'm just going to stop it. Let's try and add a task. Well, that's going to work. No, I should have just stopped there and said, yeah, it's working. That was terrible. Oh, yeah, it's working. Okay. So, yeah, so I can then check on check. All right, so that's purely peer-to-peer. And the one thing I had to change to make it work is the URL. Like one change, you know? That's pretty, it just gives me chill just talking about it. Just one string to make it work peer-to-peer is pretty astonishing, I think. Okay, so let's have a look at, sometimes you may not want to use sync. Sometimes you just want to go and fetch data and back. In that case, there is a REST API, and we now use Swagger to document it. So the cool thing about Swagger is it gives you this nice UI to document your endpoints, but also you can generate your HTTP clients based on it, and then make requests to the endpoints that were documented. So if you're interested, we can talk about it during the break, but that's what we use. And all these endpoints that I use for the syncing are available like publicly without any security, right? So you can access them. The security is added on top for REST and for sync. It's like it takes the whole. So quick recap, just in case now you've got how the product works, just recap on all the things we support to make sure if you have questions about your specific use case, that may cover it. So the platforms, we have PhoneGap as well as Xamarin and tvOS. Those are platforms that sort of like come out of the native library, so that C# will run for Xamarin as well. And the PhoneGap is an hybrid plugin, so the iOS and the Android come together to support PhoneGap. Same, we have experimental projects for React Native and Native Script as well, if that's something you're looking into. Sync gateway, we covered the different aspects of it, and that's how to look at it. So Couchbase Lite is out in the wild. Sync gateway is exposed to the internet usually, and then so it does the public-facing sync, and then there's obviously internal sync between the sync gateway and Couchbase server. And yeah, a good example to tie everything together is what would happen on a plane, for example, if you were in the airport and you wanted to check in. Once you're in the flight, you know, or maybe the airport itself needs that sync capability for people who are on the ground. You know, sometimes before you take a flight, somebody goes into the flight and hands a paper to the pilot or something. Well, instead of handing the paper, they could do syncs peer-to-peer, and then that would solve that issue. But there's other ones as well, food and beverages on the plane, stuff like that. And then once the plane has landed, everything can then synchronize back to the cloud. And so those are what were mentioned in the slide just previously. And some use cases out there. So Predix is built by General Electric, and it's a platform to allow people to build apps on top of what they have to synchronize with different sort of like micro output streams of data here, like controllers. And yeah, Fujo as well is very involved with them. So if you want to chat, Fujo, put your hand up in the air so everyone knows who you are. So Fujo is at the back here. Turn around, yeah. So he knows a lot about all this stuff. And the second one is Ryanair. I'll just show you what happened here, the process. So here you've got before using Couchbase and then afterwards. And here they preloaded all the destinations in the database so that when the user opens the app, they already know all their routes. That's a pretty static data, like flying from to all the destinations they cover. And then the price is still dynamic. You're still going to fetch from the server to do that. So you can mix the two. And it's basically comparing the time you have to wait for the data to come, and then in the case where you don't have to. So that pretty much summarizes it. Yeah, so if you have anything you want to go into, I'll show you developer.couchbase.com/mobile. This is this link here. When you land here, you can click Start Building, and it's going to take you to this page. This is a project we're working on at the moment. It's a very complete training which covers everything we talked about today, but in detail. So data modeling, synchronization with conflict resolution, integration of other systems, deployment, load testing. And at the moment, it's in sort of like alpha. So you can go here and take different lessons. And in about 2 weeks, around where we'll have Couchbase Connect happening, everything will be sort of GA, and all the lessons will be there. So it will be quite interesting maybe for you to go through it. At the moment, it's only for Swift on iOS. But in 2 weeks' time, we'll have Android. We're working on that. And then .NET probably 2 weeks after. Yeah. That's it. If you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter or just send me an email. Thank you very much. 1 minute.